So man can't afford to mess up on this. Men easily forget the tender love their wife needs. Tend to think, I'm tough, she's tough. Of course she is tough, but she needs to be treated tender. By making human marriage a picture of Christ's marriage to his church, God gave Christian couples the privilege of being a signpost and a live enactment of redemption, right? That's your Ephesians 5, 22 through 33. Wives, be submissive to your husbands as the church is to Christ. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church. And verse 32 in that passage makes the exact tie between the divine human marriage and human-to-human marriage, where it says, this mystery is great. I'm talking about human marriage, but I'm really speaking about Christ and the church. And so it says, and he brought her to the man, like a dad walking his daughter down the aisle. Brought her indicates that God's work area was some distance from man, near or far, and now he brings her back. He may have wanted to highlight his pinnacle creature by withholding her from view until her official introduction. Maybe he went behind some trees or something, and it's just like, okay, hold on, you wake up from your sleep, and then look at this. Imagine God's delight. It would have largely been delight in Adam and Eve's delight. He is a very generous God. God, if you will, has the Trinity. The Father has the Son has the Spirit has the Father. He gave us a special fellowship of our own here on earth. But one day we will all be one with Christ as he is with the Father. Right? That's what he prayed in John 17:11, that they all may be one as we are one. So, in our day, how sad when a society despises marriage. It's hard enough to do marriage well when your culture is behind it, but feminism, where it went beyond a critique of male oppression of females, and women have a right to say, hey, we're being mistreated here if they are, but feminism has done great damage, pitting the genders against one another. The Bible forcefully condemns mistreatment of women. Doesn't need feminism to do that. Christian men should be on the forefront of defending women's dignity. You might say that's where feminism came from, is that Christian men weren't taking their place, taking the place of being the defenders. And once in the faith, many Christian women have been called within their church setting to minister to downtrodden women. That, by the way, is the main evangelistic vehicle in India, in the part of ministry, India, where I went, was they would go to the marketplace first thing in the morning when the women there, and they would talk to the women. And they would especially find the women who had bruises and such. And then very often, they said strangely, that the women would become Christians, and the husbands very often followed soon after. So, God brought woman to man. Let a joined man and woman stay together. Amen. Genesis 2:23, and the man said, this one now at last is bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh. For this one shall be called woman, because this one has been taken out of man. Or just using the Hebrew words for those two words, woman and man, for this one shall be called Isha, because she was taken out of Ish. Now, that's the literal version with a little bit of a difference. The literal standard version says, this at last, bone of my bones. Young's literal translation, which is the predecessor of the literal standard, has, this is the proper step, exclamation mark. The ISV has, at last, exclamation mark, this is bone of my bones. Kids speak kids. when God made Eve, Adam said, "At last." Does it sound like Adam was pretty happy? Yeah, sounds like he was real happy. So the word for "at last" occurs 18 times with the article, like we have it right here. Our verse is the only time it's preceded by the word "this." Abraham uses the word to bargain with God, saying, after he said, well, what if there's, 50 people in Sodom? What if there's 40? What if there's 30? And so on. I forget the exact numbers. But when he gets to the last one, he says, well, just let me speak to you this one last time. And this is the word that he uses, just this once, or a last time, to get the minimum number down. That's in Genesis 18:32. But guess who uses the word the most? Leah. She uses it the most and most pitifully, thinking that at last this newborn son would win her husband's favor. Genesis 29:34 and 35, Genesis 30, verse 20. And then the last occurrence in Genesis is positive, Jacob telling Joseph that at last he got to see him before he died. Genesis 46:30. I believe that excitement is proper to observe in these words, as in the translations that supply the exclamation mark. There is no exclamation mark or an equivalent in Hebrew or Greek. When you see the words behold or lo, maybe they might suggest it sometimes. It is a translator's judgment call. The ESV, for instance, has 1,702 exclamation marks, starting at Genesis 4:15. The King James is a little more reserved with 313, 350 if you throw in the Apocrypha. The Geneva Bible before the King James just had 75. The Bishop's Bible before that had 1. Isn't that weird to have just one exclamation mark in their whole Bible, their whole translation? Adam basically says then, here's my same bone and flesh, same as me, finally, looking at all the animals. And then he sees this one and he says, yes, this is what I was looking for. He noticed the physiological similarity, something that was missing from all the animals. Though he probably, again, felt no pain, he could see and feel in his ribs that one was missing. So he knew that the woman was taken out of man. So that's why he called her as he did. She will be called woman, Isha, for she was taken out of man, Ish. Adam assumes the same duty from naming the animals in the naming of his wife. I name them. I describe her out of man, therefore Isha. This was her generic name, of course. This isn't Eve. Just as man was Adam's generic name, apparently given by God, as Adam, the name Adam as well. The animals' names were generic. Of course, he still could have given an individual name like Fido to the cat. Okay, Fido the dog, right? I think Fido means faithful. So if that was in Hebrew, it would have been Aman. Or I remember a student I had named Amani, so that would be my faithful one. So the ending, Isha, the ending in Hebrew is a feminine ending. So Ish, man, Isha, the feminine of man. Matthew Henry calls her the she-man, and that is perhaps a little dangerous in our cultural setting, but the female as the male's counterpart actually solidifies the separation of the genders. It argues against the transferability of gender. The English word woman is similar to Hebrew, coming originally from wife man or wife person, withman. Withman was the old English for woman. So, Ish was a name for people in general, also in Hebrew, and Adam was not just Adam's name, but mostly by far the name for mankind. So Adam had named apes, by the way. He obviously had not come from one. He said, this one is flesh of my flesh, not the ape. Back to the exclamation mark. Adam was overjoyed. Men, we should continue to be overjoyed with our wives. Jesus delights in his bride. Psalm 149 that we sing in verse 4 says as much, that Jehovah delights in his people. And then you can put that specifically in a marriage context in Isaiah 62, that the Old Testament actually talks about God in a marriage relationship with his people, and says that Jehovah delights in you. And by the way, the feeling is naturally mutual. The previous chapter, verse 10, says that we delight in him. Kids speak. Kids, just like Adam was super happy with Eve, is God super happy with us, his people? Yeah. So if we understand the joy of paying deep attention, we are joined